Oh, hello. Welcome to today's video. Going to be a little bit of a weird one today. Again, Thursday seems to be, at the moment, home of the weird non-Kill Team, non-Games Workshop, in this case, related videos, but here we go. We're going to talk about a game called Relic Knights. Let me know in the comments straight away if you have heard of Relic Knights, you know exactly where this is going. This is not a game about which you've kind of vaguely heard. Either you're deeply engaged in the drama around this game, or you've never heard of it. Those seem to be the only two states. It's a getting burned by Kickstarter story, but it also has a happy-ish ending because I randomly received a Kingdom Death model last week, and there's a full unboxing and review of that at the end of the video. So stick around for that. A bit of history. It was the year 2017. Now, you know how we refer to the first edition of Kill Team as Kill Team 2018? It turns out that before Games Workshop got off their backside and decided to make one, there were basically no good science fiction skirmish games out there at all. Like, I know you're going to say Malifaux. Malifaux, for my money, it's not quite science fiction. I like Malifaux's universe, but it's not quite science fiction. There was a real gap in the market in 2017 for a really, a handful of models aside game where everyone has a gun, right? Is what I'm saying. And I was really into anime at university and before university, and I still have a soft spot for certain things like Neon Genesis Evangelion or Ghost in the Shell. Pretty the big things. I would no longer say I was an anime fan because I've not watched an anime that was produced in the last decade and a half, right? But I still had more fond memories of that time in my life back in 2017, and this is an anime style game, as you'll see from some of the models. And it was the second edition. There was a first edition Relic Knights game, which was a CMON, I think, project, and it was a cheap and cheerful affair. I mean, the models for the Season 1 models weren't actually that lovely, but they were quite cheap. They were like this rustic stuff. It was fine. It was a fun game, and the miniatures looked okay. There were some scale issues, right, and things like that. I'm not really here to talk about the Season 1 Kickstarter, okay? Now, for the Season 2 Kickstarter here, Mrs. T and I, between us, decided to really go in for more or less everything for 2 of the 4 factions. So I really liked the Black Diamond, which is what you can see throughout this presentation. And Mrs. T went in for a faction called the Shattered Sword, and we through the pledge manager was open for like a year after the thing finished. So we kept adding to it bit by bit, and by the end, when they closed the pledge manager, we were all in for the tune of $723.98 American, which, the pound was stronger than the dollar back then. But it's one of those things I look back on from 5 years down the line with a baby and with the economy doing the backflips that it is here in the UK. Was I high? I mean, how? It seemed like a good idea at the time, and there's nothing to be gained by trying to second guess myself now. But stings a little bit. But this isn't the company's fault. This is past Phil's fault. Past Phil felt that he had money to burn, right? It all went a bit wrong, as a lot of Kickstarter stories do. It went a bit wrong. So in February 2018, they posted an update after they'd basically been silent for a couple of months. When the pledge manager closed, it was all hunky-dory for a bit, and then nothing was getting moving. It was all silent. And then in February 2018, they posted an update. They basically said that they had 3 Kickstarters they were trying to manage concurrently, right, for 3 different IPs. Massively overspent on the development costs for their various Kickstarters, and they included some pie charts where they basically said, we've massively overspent. And then they said, we've laid off most of our staff, so it's now just the 3 owners of the company who they claimed weren't drawing a salary at that time, and a sales manager. And they say, and they still say, they remain committed to deliver. This company is still trading. They remain committed to delivering all the Kickstarters eventually. And I like to assume good faith, but it has been over 5 years. So it all went a bit wrong. And so the next question you're going to ask is, did I get any of my stuff? So a right little bit. They are running a program called Masterclass. They're basically saying that they don't have the money to send out everybody's Kickstarters, but they have produced a fair amount of the stuff. And if you make an order from their store for something, anything, they will send out anything that they can get their hands on that's involved in your Kickstarter and put it in the box with the thing that you've ordered to piggyback the shipping costs. And then at the same time, they're running a program called Masterclass, where essentially they are bringing out occasional miniatures that are... I mean, this was one of the Masterclass miniatures on the screen here, which are supposedly sculpted to a very high standard. And they unambiguously slightly overcharge for those miniatures. And then, as far as I understand, the idea is the profits they make from that range of miniatures is then used to try and continue to meet their obligations to their Kickstarters. So this is their way of slowly, over the last 4 or 5 years, trying to dig out the hole that they're in. Now, I have ordered some models, on 2 occasions, I've ordered one model for $20, and I've got a fair old handful of stuff. Nowhere near the full amount that I am owed by them. Got a fair old handful of stuff each time. Big trouble here is that they have 3 properties on the go, and almost everything that they make that's new is for another of their properties called Super Dungeon Explore. They're these little chibi figures in a board game, and I don't want to buy that because I'm not interested in the little chibi figures. And literally, if they actually produced a single miniature and there was $25 or whatever, and it was for Relic Knights and it was for either of the factions that my wife and I intended to play, or it was for there's 4 factions or 6 factions, I can't even remember, and there's 2 meta factions that can draw basically there's an overarching good guy faction and an overarching bad guy faction. And if they released something that was for the one of the factions or one of the meta factions, that was one of the things that my wife and I were interested in, we'd probably buy one, just to see what grab bag of random stuff we'd also get. But they don't even, and that's, a lot of people quite reasonably say, I'm not giving them another penny. I've already given them XYZ money. And that's quite a reasonable stance. I'm a hopeful person. But they don't even produce anything that I might possibly be able to convince myself is a thing that I need or want, because they produce certainly produce nothing for Relic Knights in at least a year, if not 2. That's all for the entire game system. No new models. So therefore, if you're sitting there with loads of Relic Knight stuff that they have that you've paid for, and they're saying, well, we'll ship it, and they do always say, oh, we'll eventually ship everything out. Anyway, you don't buy anything, eventually we'll be financially secure and we'll be able to ship out everything that we have. But if you want to jump the queue, you need to buy something, which is a bit... I'm a charitable guy. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's a bit much. Right? So, Now, we need to have a little bit of a ramble about Kickstarter, because some of you will be spitting blood at the screen, and why isn't Phil furious about this, and blah, 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 blah. Kickstarter's a really interesting concept to me, because I remember when Kickstarter came out and it was pitched, the whole point of Kickstarter is it's like a crowdsourced Dragon's Den, right? Or if you're in America, Shark Tank, right? It's the idea is somebody comes in and pitches something off the top of their head, right? And then you can, if you think that's cool, I want to see that produced, you can throw in money. And by throwing in money, you get some kind of physical, you get one of the things when it's produced, or some stickers, or whatever it is. But you are not... The idea of Kickstarter is not, or was not originally supposed to be that you're actually buying the reward. The idea was that you are investing in the project because you believe in it, and the reward is supposed to be ancillary. And at some point, and 100% that's not how Kickstarter works today. At some point, what Kickstarter was mutated. I think the biggest culprits here are the big companies that use Kickstarter because For some reason, Kickstarter generates hype. So a massive company will use Kickstarter, which doesn't need to do, because it doesn't need to raise capital, because actually, many of these big companies that put up Kickstarters, the stuff's already in the warehouse. Right, it's no longer like, well, yeah, if you back for this thing, then in a year or two we'll have finished it and we might be able to send it out to you. It's like people now on Kickstarter are extremely entitled because they view it as a commercial transaction rather than an investment, and that culture has grown up. And maybe I'm in a minority, maybe I'm being overly charitable to the companies involved. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm irritated. Of course I'm irritated to have spent that much money, invested, you see, that much money and not got anything back in return. But I did view it at the time as an investment, one that I thought that I'm disappointed in the way they've mismanaged my money, because they were an established company. Soda Pop Miniatures were around for a long time before this Kickstarter. They just, I don't know. I think they probably grew or tried to grow too hard, and they spent money. You know, they suddenly found themselves in a cash-rich environment. And if you look at photos of them at Gen Con and things like that, I think they spent a lot on big boy marketing stuff, right? On hiring people in costumes and things like that to be around their booth and big sort of crowd drawers. They basically tried to act like a big company. You know, if you go to a big convention, you see Games Workshop, massive Terminator statue. Now they look around, right? But Games Workshop's worth more than British Gas. So if you suddenly get an influx of cash, that's what. Now this is my assumption. I don't want to be accused of libel. This is my assumption as what happened. It's a very human and understandable failing, right? You suddenly get a huge pile of money and you think, great, we've made the big time, and you start acting like one of those big established companies when actually, you're not. So that's. I'm irritated by it, I guess. Irritated is not the right word. I honestly, I'd forgotten about it until something happened, which we'll get to in a minute. But it would take a lot to convince me to go onto Kickstarter for anything now. You know, it would have to be a project that I really, really desperately believed in. The problem with Kickstarter now is, from my understanding, and it's kind of big high-profile failure. I mean, not high-profile in terms of the world, but reasonably high-profile, I think, in terms of the miniature game space. Failures. People don't want to back things now, and so one of the ways people get people on Kickstarter is by going, well, we're only really going to do a Kickstarter. Like, things go on to Kickstarter, and then the product never really materialises. Because actually, it's not even a pre-order anymore. It's just the thing. It's almost like it's become. It's almost, my slide is kind of a little bit out of date here, right? Because it's gone from being an investment platform to being a pre-order platform to now it's almost like a. It's not just the pre-order. It's the whole campaign. It's the whole order of the thing, and then once Kickstarter's done, the thing's done, and then the company will, wrap it up and move on to the next Kickstarter. And in the miniatures game space, in the board game space, that's fine. In the miniatures game space, that's really toxic, because if you can't build a miniatures community on just the early adopters, just the people who buy everything. You need those people to go out and go, look, I've got 2 armies for this game. I think it's really cool. Will you give me a game? And that's how games that aren't GW PLC games, but that's how other games actually build up. So I don't know what to think about. What are your views on Kickstarter as a concept? You let me know those in the comments as well. So why am I talking about this now? So this Kickstarter was one of those classic everything, including the kitchen sink minis Kickstarters. And one of the rewards was a Kingdom Death crossover miniature. So if you haven't heard of Kingdom Death, I think nearly everybody has heard of Kingdom Death, right? It's a boutique miniatures game, resin. Some of the sculpts, I don't want to say all of the sculpts, but I don't know enough about it. But I know that Mike McVeigh was connected with Kingdom Death, or sculpted a lot of the things for it, or at least some of the things for it. And then, because I am nothing if not a Warhammer channel. You know, you can still see it in Warhammer World today. You know the original Horus versus the Emperor diorama that's in Warhammer World, that was in Warhammer World in the 90s when I was a kid, that's been in White Dwarf. Mike McVeigh used to work for GW, has won Slayer swords and so on and so forth. And so everybody, I think, knows Kingdom Death. The minute just have a reputation for being very lovely, but rather expensive. And, you know, like a lot of things in this presentation, a damn sight hornier than I usually go in for with my models these days. But it is what it is. You know, 5 years ago when I backed it, it was kind of a nostalgia trip. I was kind of channeling my undergraduate self. But there you are. Anyway, I got an email out of the blue in June that Kingdom Death was shipping this model out to me for this Kickstarter that had basically erased from my brain. So I've done a full unboxing video and review of the miniature for people that might be interested, either whether I'm going to attract some new people or just it's a curious thing. Everybody's heard of Kingdom Death, and very few people actually have their stuff. So I'm going to roll that footage now through the magic of editing, which is far more technical than this channel usually gets, and then I'll come back here to this for some final thoughts. See you then. Okay, so this is the actual unboxing. Here we have some rather macabre wrapping paper. This is standard for Kingdom Death stuff. Get that out of the way, and we can see Possessed Twilight Night painted scale. And, you know, I mean, that is a very smart. I have no idea what these things typically retail for, right? Obviously, I've gone through all the history with this Kickstarter previously, although I'm actually recording this bit first, but I assume that I've done that, right? This is a very well packaged, expensive looking thing, so let's slide that off there. Easier said than done. Slide, 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 slide. I mean, this is shaping up to be a really exciting video where you watch someone struggle to slide off a piece of cardboard. I don't want to sort of rip it open. So there we go. That's a cardboard sleeve, and then we've got box. And inside the box, what do we get? We get an art card of the miniature we've apparently received, and a close-up. There we go. We get a base. Never had a Kingdom Death miniature before of any kind, so I don't know if this is standard. We get something else in a sort of goth wrapping paper. I presume that's the actual miniature. And then we get that's it. So then we get a card for Relic Knights. Now I believe this is a sort of normal, this is alternate model for something that already exists in the game. Although, as you've probably gathered from the PowerPoint that I've gone through previous to this bit, I haven't really got any idea about this game anymore, because it's been years. So that I will have is presumably just an alternate card with the art on that represents this miniature. There you go. So that's that, and this is presumably something for playing Kingdom Death with the miniature. Got no idea about that. Okay, so that was exciting. Got a box. Okay, let's open the next layer of wrapping paper and see what we actually get. All that, right, all that niceness, and inside that the whole thing is a baggie, right? It all comes down to a baggie. So get that off. It's not even a zippy bag. which, you know, minor things. There we go. Oh man, there's some really tiny pieces here. So what we've actually got is resin, and you know what we don't have, boys and girls? Instructions. So we've got like a resin jigsaw. So I'm going to stop the video there, I think. So we've got the base is quite nice with a D10 on the base there. I think that the wow, that's a piece, isn't it? That's not a piece of flash. That's a hand. Let me just. That's definitely a hand. Okay, so this is going to be a baptism of fire for someone that's used to Games Workshop type stuff. I mean, I've done some 4-year-old kits, certainly in my time, Primarchs and things. But they do usually come with instructions. That's going to need some hot water to reshape it. Leg, the other leg. Torso. Right, well that's, yeah, I'm going to have to do some research online, try and find some instructions, and then hopefully the next thing you'll see is the miniature built. I hope that was interesting. Alright, back to PowerPoint fill, okay? So I hope you enjoyed that, and I was able to edit it all together correctly. I actually made that video about a week ago? A week and a half? I've forgotten what I said at the end of the video, so anyway, here's the final thoughts. This whole thing is a real shame, because from what I can remember, and I've not played Relic Knights in about 4 years, it was a really cool and interesting skirmish game with a cool activation mechanic. It kind of had cards like Malifaux, but the cards were more like Pokemon cards. If you've ever played Pokemon cards, you have energy, and then you spent your energy to get your miniatures to do different things on the tabletop, and it, you know, actually, rules-wise, it was a really interesting game, and it was. I still haven't seen anything quite like it in the wargaming space. So I sort of hope that it can recover. I mean, it seems like a forlorn hope at this point. Not at least because Big Boy GW has come out and gone, oh yes, no, skirmish games are popular. Kill Team, Warcry, Warhammer Underworld, we'll launch all those things into the world, you know. And then, of course, Star Wars Shatterpoint as well. I'll get angry emails from Major Tom if I don't mention that. But there are so many things out there now in the sci-fi skirmish game space. But if you love anime, you know, this could be a game that you might be somebody who's in my audience who's looking at all these pictures and going, that looks really cool. In which case, I'm advertising something to you, which honestly, you can actually go and buy this stuff. You can go to their website. You can actually buy some of the things that I've kickstarted and don't have. How reasonable does that sound to you? But you can, in vaguely limited quantities. But they are trading. They do exist. If you like the look of the stuff, you can go check their website out and at least buy one of their models to paint, and then hopefully that money gets them an inch towards fulfilling my Kickstarter. I don't know. But I don't hold out much hope because they haven't said anything. Even with these Kingdom Death figures being sent out, all the communication has been from emails from the Kingdom Death people. Like, I think they've had these probably in their warehouse for a long time, and they've finally gone, oh, we need to get this, you know, we need to get this cleared out. I did contact Ninja Division in the last couple of weeks before making this video because I was clicking around on my account and looking at my Kickstarter stuff, and I realised that the address on my original Kickstarter order, like, I've moved house since then, because when Penny was born, we needed to move house. I emailed their customer service to like, well, I've updated the address on my account, but I can't update the original address on my order. I don't know if this is important, blah, blah, blah. Nothing at all. Not even a thank you for your email, blah, 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 from a robot. So I don't know how many staff they have employed these days. I don't know what the situation is over there in Ninja Division / Soda Pop Miniatures Towers. Funnily enough, whenever I mention this, I mentioned it on the live stream last night, nobody's ever heard of it. So if you're a person that's heard of Relic Knights and has thoughts, do let me know in the comments. We can build up a kind of a... I know there's a Facebook group or two, but they are pretty dead. But there you go. Now, if you've come to this video because maybe you are a fan of Red Knights or of Kingdom Death, maybe, and you've come to see that, this is indicative of the style of my content. My content is usually focused around Warhammer 40k, Kill Team especially, skirmish game stuff, a bit of hobby stuff. So obviously if you've liked the video and you like my style of rambling and you're interested in other things, then, please do consider a subscribe, a like, a comment, and all those things. But I can't promise I'll cover... Hey, if it all comes out and we play it, I'll do a bat rep. Why not? I can't promise there'll be more really nice content. It's really up to Ninja Division whether they want a YouTube following or any kind of following, or to have a living game. They need to pacify their Kickstarter backers, which are many of whom are far angrier and ruder about it than I am. I'm quite philosophical about the whole thing, but they do need to sort that out. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. A bit of a strange one. A big thank you to all my channel members for their continued financial support, especially to Nightfall EDH, who has subscribed at the highest tier and therefore gets one of these shout-outs for as long as he keeps up his subscription at that tier, because that is a perk of being someone that wants to do that. And thank you as well for tolerating, I realise that this isn't the content that you're mostly here for, but as with all YouTube channels, there will be a percentage of people who are like, I really like listening to you say stuff, and it doesn't really matter what it is. And there are other people who are just like, give me the Kill Team. This isn't Kill Team. I've turned off already. But those people aren't here anymore, so I don't have to mollify them. It's fine, isn't it? I'll see you at the weekend. It'll be 40k or Kill Team related stuff at the weekend, I promise. Cheery bye.